All right, guys, another episode from the Coach's Desk, and I'm gonna frame this conversation in the idea of being a show horse versus a racehorse. And I think, first of all, there's a big difference from being in shape and looking in shape. Most people are like, hey, I really need to get in shape. I'm getting married. I'm going to the beach. I really need to get in shape. Mm-hmm. And essentially, what everyone means by getting in shape, or I need to start working out, is most people who are not athletic or athletes are really just saying they want to look better. They want to have a more improved body composition. Guys typically want to put on muscle and burn fat. That's probably the most common question we get is, what program am I going to put on muscle and burn fat with, right? It's very frustrating because that's not a realistic question, really. But what we want to talk about today is this idea of how programming is going to influence performance and build racehorses, and how genetics, nutrition, and some programming will influence how you look, make you look like a show horse, okay?
Yeah, and we also need to kind of understand that with the type of gym that we are and the type of programming that we provide, we have a very heavy bias towards generating the performance-geared athlete, with the understanding that if you train and you're disciplined, then some amount of aesthetics will come over the course of being disciplined about your performance-driven training.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you a question then. How much do you think programming influences aesthetics? How much?
10%.
Okay, I would agree. I was hoping he was going to say not very much, because you could essentially have, let's think of a very athletic individual, like Rich Froning, right? Obviously a very notable CrossFit athlete. Rich Froning could probably do dozens of different programs, right? And still look the way he looks, okay?
Yeah.
And that would apply to a bunch of athletes that you would see online. Now, obviously, like when you get to like the extremely muscular guys, the bodybuilders, right? If you start introducing a lot of cardiovascular conditioning, work capacity, metabolic conditioning, aerobic capacity, then now, obviously, they're going to lose some muscle mass because they're spending more time on one side of the equation than the other, the metabolic versus muscular side. But generally speaking, what most of us are striving for, that athletic physique, the program is not going to influence it too much, especially if it's comprehensive and well-rounded.
That's right.
What is going to influence it is genetics, which you can do nothing about. All right, that's just how life is. Life's not fair. Some people are going to be muscular and lean very easily. Other people are going to pack on pounds very easily. You always hear about it in the holidays, right? Like, oh, I put on 10 pounds over Christmas. I can eat like a pig and not put on any weight, right? It's just hard for me to gain weight. So there's just some people have different, metabolic rates, and their body responds differently to a surplus or deficit in calories. And what you have to understand as an athlete is, would you rather look good or be good, right? Because the path is going to be very, very different, right? Typically speaking, if you want to perform at a high level, right, you are better off being in a surplus. You're better off being well-nourished for your training to get the most out of that training, and you're better off post-training, right, taking in carbohydrates, taking in protein, right, getting enough nutrients to recover properly, which is going to be much different than if you're like, I'm really chasing my physique, right? If you look at someone who does a physique competition, like within 3 or 4 weeks of their meet, they are not healthy, right? They're in a bad mood. They're dehydrated typically. They're undernourished, and they're in an extreme cutting phase. And that is not a healthy approach. Also understand that physique athletes don't look that way year round. The photos you see are typically as they're going through a cut. You don't see all the photos of them in their bulking phase.
That's right.
And so if you understand how this works, and some of the best physique coaches in the world subscribe to this methodology, or most of them do, not some, of that you're going to have an off season where you are, if you're, regardless of male or female, is that you are bulking and putting on mass, and then you cut, right? That's kind of the natural cycle of the physique world, the aesthetic world. Understand that unless you're extremely overweight, a deficit's not going to help performance. If you're extremely overweight and you go into a deficit and you start losing weight, you will run faster. You will do more pull-ups. You will do more push-ups. You will simply just move better. So even though you may be at a deficit, you're probably going to be performing better simply because you're shedding unwanted pounds.
And I suppose this is a good point where we can say like a public service announcement, sort of thing, that you need to be able to, you always need to be able to eat the right amount of food, right? Like you should not be looking to undereat if you're looking to perform. You just need to eat the right amount of food.
Yes, and which is probably like one of the hardest things is, I mean, like I've done it before, Jordan's done it before. Tracking your calories and macros consistently is hard. It requires a lot of time and effort. It requires typically an app on your phone. You have to start reading labels. You have to start inputting things if it's not already in that food bank. It is a complete pain in the ass, to be honest with you. But having the right amount of food, especially in the right quantities, which that's probably number one and number two as far as like having good nutrition and a good physique, is that you have to do that work. All of us know what real food is, and all of us know what we should eat. The question is, can we do it? We talked earlier to a guy, who, he's like, well, I figure if I get down to this weight, it'd probably help if I didn't drink. Like, of course it would help if you didn't drink, right? And, but it's one of those things where I think when it comes down to this whole show horse versus racehorse thing, right, is that I would say it requires less discipline to be a high performance athlete than it would to be a really good looking athlete.
But another PSA here, the show horse, like that's not sustainational.
No.
The show horse aesthetic is not a sustainable aesthetic.
The vast majority. Like, there's always that, like Ethan was in here earlier, 1-2%, they just walk around, they're shredded. That's probably less than 1% of the population. But
also if you're shredded in 24 and a professional athlete, you kind of don't count.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're talking about normal people.
Like I'm talking about a person who like, imagine like you just graduated college, all right, you're going to work in finance and you're trying to train 5 days a week just to stay active.
Stem the tide.
You are not going to look like a professional athlete looks, and you should have absolutely no false expectation that you're going to look that way.
Yes.
For both males and for females. And even if you dial in your nutrition perfectly and you do cut your body composition down to what you aesthetically want, that is probably not sustainable for you to do
healthy.
And train, nor is it going to be healthy. Because eventually that deficit that you're running to attain the body composition that you want is going to like tank your performance in the gym. And so naturally your body's going to demand, and eventually you're going to listen to your body, it's going to demand that you eat more. And you're going to store some of that energy that you take in as fat. And that's going to throw off your body composition. But also your performance is going to go up. Because it may be like a pound or two of fat, which you can see, but it's not enough to affect your performance negatively, And so eventually you are going to start eating in the way that you need to eat, and that's why it's not sustainable.
I mean, like nothing, at least as coaches, I find nothing more embarrassing for an athlete than coming in here and looking shredded, and everyone's like, wow, look at that guy. And they're just getting absolutely destroyed. And it's happened so many times where people come in and you're like, oh wow, like that person looks really fit. And then you just have our everyday normal athletes who don't look like anything impressive, just destroy them.
I mean, run them into the ground. I would say that if we had 20 athletes, I would say 19, let's say we had 20 jacked athletes walk into the gym. I would say, and we're talking about our style of training, right? I would say 19 of those athletes would finish middle of the pack, maybe. Maybe one of those athletes would finish in the top third, top 20%.
Yeah, I mean, we had 100 Air Force guys in here the other day, and some of them looked they looked in shape.
Yes.
Lean and muscular. And as we watched them do the workout, we're like, wow. Most of our athletes could, simply just destroy them.
Run them into the ground.
And so when you think about training and as you move forward with your training path, like understand, you have to make a decision essentially. Do you want to be able to perform at a high level, or would you prefer to look like you can perform at a high level? Some people are naturally going to be able to do both, but the vast majority aren't. I know like myself and Jordan, we both probably had aspirations of being much more muscular, and we spent a lot of time like eating a lot, lifting a lot. And we were fighting our genetics, right? And now, I mean, we're obviously in our 40s now, but like our bodies kind of want to hang out in this size. And for us to greatly go one way or the other, would require a whole lot more dietary discipline than either one of us are really willing to invest.
Jay, did you ever? I thought this a lot. Like when I was a younger man, like kid, and like elementary, junior, high school, like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I had this thought a lot that I would look at like posters of professional athletes and I'd be like, he doesn't really look that fit. Because my idea of like fit was like fucking Rambo, dude.
Yeah.
He's saving the world.
Yeah.
You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Like
Predator, Rambo, all those. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, blow off some steam. You know,
but the funny thing is, you probably could have, you know, let's just use Arnold in Predator and have him in the gym. And on any work capacity that we would have in our gym, he would get wrecked by probably, I'd say, 3/4 of the gym.
Yeah.
You know, and so you just have to identify like, hey, like what do I really want out of this? Do I want to live a long, healthy life? Do I want to be able to perform? Do I want to be able to run the block without like losing my breath, right? Or am I going to chase this extreme vain goal for something that probably really won't pay off, and especially as you mature and get older, and actually as you do combative sports as well. You know, we both have done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, and when you see someone who looks like they're really scary, and then you see them train in like a combative environment, you're like, oh, I'm not actually scared of that person at all. And then you see people who do not look scary, who are such high-level combative athletes, where you'd be like, wow. I mean, perfect example. We met a guy today who walked in, who was Cuban, and he had done judo for 12 years. And like, I think that the vast majority of college men would not think twice about poking him in the chest at a bar. And that would probably be a huge
They would end up with
mistake.
their face in the pavement
Yeah.
and regret their decisions.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there has to be
Yeah.
this, like, it's kind of like there's been like a veil put over, I think, most of us in regards to this is what an athlete looks like.
Yeah.
This is what a scary person looks like, and this is what a woman should look like, right? Especially for women. Obviously, I think women, you know, it's a really challenging thing because women all want to have, you know, that certain physique, you know, small waist, you know, strong muscular legs, be voluptuous but also athletic, and it's one of those things where I think Instagram, social media, and the more information we're exposed to, the more misconceptions can occur in regards to like, hey, this is what healthy is, this is what you should look like, and it's a challenge.
And maybe in some ways it's gotten better, and maybe there's less pressure on people to attain certain body types, but in a lot of ways it's gotten worse, and it's sort of insidious in how it's gotten worse, because it's like some guy who is probably on some sort of gear, some sort of performance enhancing supplement, who is in also probably the prime of their life, who probably rented a house, rented a Ferrari for that weekend, has his shirt off, is incredibly jacked and telling you to eat pizza rather than salad or something like that. It's like so insidious in like the way that it has been done. That, you know, they're just trying to sell you this false bill of goods. And, you know, I don't think that any people take it seriously, but I mean, like there's a certain amount of like, can you believe this? No, you can't. If it's too good to be true, then it isn't. You know, it's just one of those things.
If you're watching a video and listening to a guy who doesn't have a shirt on,
that's not the guy you need to go to for advice.
Yeah, I mean, because basically what's happening is, obviously, and we have this in our gym. We expect our coaches to lead from the front. We have a very challenging physical fitness assessment that all our coaches have to pass. We expect them to perform at a high level. I mean, even like we're in our 40s now, and we are still expected to do A, B, and C. And so there is something to be said about being physically able and kind of like walking the walk by being a coach or a businessman if you're selling online programs. But if your sole marketing point is sitting with your shirt off and like having a shaved chest and like maybe doing a pump before you make a video, I think you're really not following the right path. And so I think the idea, without going on.
But also I would invite those guys into the gym and say like, hey, you know, like, you know, let's see if what you're cooking is really worthwhile.
Let's see what the Ferrari with the four-banger engine can actually do.
I mean, they're selling this aesthetic and they're trying to promote it as like some sort of secret that they've discovered for fat. It's just so dumb. But also it's obviously successful, and it's being pitched by a front man who looks the way that you want to look. I mean, you can't deny like that this person, man or woman, is like selling you this product, and it's like, you know what? Damn, they look good. You know, like you can't deny it, and that's the sort of thing. It's like, oh, I want that. You know, oh, he's eating pizza, not salad. Salad's stupid. Give me the pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a real approach.
Yeah.
That's not a sustainable approach.
So I think with this conversation kind of comes back to this idea is it's our recommendation to follow a structured program that is designed to make you stronger and faster. If you are seeking aesthetic gains, understand that it's cyclical and that you're going to have to gain and then lose and gain and lose. And also accept the fact that for the vast majority of people out there, it's going to require a high level of discipline in regards to dietary monitoring. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 times a day. You're going to need to get on your phone and you're going to need to track calories and macros. And it's time consuming. It will greatly impact aesthetics if you do it correctly. There are great aesthetic coaches out there. But there's also a lot of BS. And just understand that, like, if you're watching videos of people who have their shirts off and they're just posting their favorite exercises and saying like, hey, do this, buy my thing, that they're probably not an actual credentialed or experienced coach. They probably are an athlete who is moderately successful, looks great, and trying to take advantage of their physique. Stick to the process and have a good, clean diet, and most likely, you will be pretty satisfied with the end result, especially if you're consistent and disciplined.
Yep. Focus on performance, eat clean, aesthetics will come.